Welcome back to Cameraderie. This is going to be a camera review video. I haven't done one of these in literally years, so yeah, why not? And also I've had too much caffeine and I'm having a good hair day, so why not? Today, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite cameras of all time. This camera has been my go-to daily shooter for probably about 3 years or so, maybe 2. Oh no, I turned my computer on, a lot of rolls. And that's just in this binder. Started another one. But point being, I've shot with this camera quite a bit. So it's traveled the country with me, it's traveled the cities with me. It's at this point it's like an extension, as cliche as it might sound, it's an extension of my arm and my eye at this point. I didn't really think anything of it. I think I bought it for $25 with the lens included. And I got it back when I was still just like straight up collecting cameras, didn't really know what I was doing with them. As I started doing these videos and everything and learning more about the craft, the art of photography, I kept running across this line of thought that people who know a lot more and who have a lot more experience than I do, basically saying pick one camera, one film stock, one lens, and just shoot the bejesus out of it. And that's what I did. You get used to, it's almost like you know exactly what you're going to see when you pull the camera up to your face, and you don't need to think about composition as much. Or, you still do all those processes in the back of your head, but it's just much more of a fluid, natural thing that you don't have to worry about so much. You already know what you're going to see and what you're going to get and what you're looking for. So I started embracing that mindset, and I went through my collection of cameras, and there was I had some not DSLRs, I had some SLRs in my collection, and I wanted to go with an SLR rather than just like a point and shoot, because I am a glutton for punishment, I guess, and I wanted to be able to fine-tune every aspect of exposure, and focus length and all that, and I wanted the option to be able to switch out lenses if I wanted to. I ended up sticking with the 50mm lens that came with this, just because to me it's the most natural, like close-ish to what I see when I look out of one eye. Or at least it's close enough to where I can, it's a natural range. Yeah, 50mm, it's a natural range. So that's why I didn't really bother too much. Plus I'm cheap. I didn't really bother with getting into a bunch of crazy lenses until much later on, after I'd shot with this for a long time. This is the Pentax ME Super. Y'all probably, if you're on this channel, you probably have heard Pentax before. It's one of the big names in especially old school film photography. The Pentax, the Pentax K1000, the Asahi Pentax K1000 is like the flagship, the film camera that you shoot with if you're starting out. This, however, was only made between 1979 and 1984 in Japan. So it is a little bit more rare, and I think functionally speaking, it's more better. It's got more functionality than the K1000. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit more compact. It feels to me a little bit better in my hand. Oh no. What? Why? What happened? No! What the... Ah! So before I was so rudely interrupted by the battery running out, where was I? This was built in 1979 and 1984, I think. I can't quite remember the price off the top of my head, what it went for, but yeah, now you can find these pretty cheap these days. Like I said, I paid $25 for mine at a Goodwill, and yeah, I mean, you can find them on eBay. You don't find them in the wild too often, like at thrift stores and stuff. I do have a Pentax K1000 that I've been shooting with, and I do plan on doing a review of that one and kind of a compare and contrast between the two cameras. So I'm going to try and stay on topic on this one though today. So yeah, you guys don't care about the K1000 yet. Yeah, I'll just run you through kind of just how it's laid out. On the front, you've got your lens, which is good. You'll need one of those if you're going to actually take some pictures. I've got a 50 millimeter 2.0 f-stop lens on here. It's not the actual Pentax lens, which, you know, whatever. It's it says Auto Sears Lens Japan. But you know, it's a standard 50 millimeter thing. You got your little lens release right here, and that shows you the insides, the glorious insides. This one was kept in pretty good condition. I didn't really have to do hardly any cleaning at all with this camera, except for just, you know, blowing a little bit of dust out here and there. But yeah, it uses the Pentax, I think it's called the K Beta Net mount system. So, you know, a little red dot, just pop them on there like that and you're ready to go. This doesn't have a depth of field preview button, which is a little bit of a bummer, but this lens, I'm gonna skip over the lens just because it's not the Pentax lens that came with it, and also this isn't a lens review, it's a camera review. So I've been shooting with a 50 millimeter lens, that's all you need to know. It's got little cable hookup right here on the side that I've never used. It's got the classic Pentax prism design up top. It's the chrome model. It did come in black, which I think would be kind of cool, but then you end up looking like Nikon, and you don't want to do that. I don't know why the hate for Nikon was there all of a sudden, but I actually really want to get a Nikon F2. If you have one, send it to me. Let's see, that moving on. Yep. That's that. ME Super. It's nice and engraved right there. Kind of moving from like front to back and over. On the bottom, you got your serial number, your tripod mount, standard issued size. You got your battery cover right there, and your rewind button, your I can never remember exactly what this is called, but this is where you unscrew it and put in like an auto winder, and that kind of just hooks up right there. But I have no use for that. I'm not shooting sports or anything like that. And if I was, I wouldn't be using this camera. On the back, not really much to see here on the back, except for the fact that mine is kind of beat up after you know, going across the country, and also the decades of use that it probably had before I got my hands on it. Right here is where you can slip in your little film stock reminder. Back here, ooh, no, you know what? We'll get to the lens. We'll get to the viewfinder in a second. Now on top, from left to right, you've got your film speed selector. Right here, it does go from, let's see, all the way from a ASA of 12, which I didn't even know they made film stocks that went that slow. But and then all the way up to 1600. So my sweet spot is usually in the my sweet spot's in the 400. It's just super versatile. I don't always know how long I'm going to be out shooting, so 400 is just a nice, like, you can with the exposure and everything, you can get it's not too bright for outdoor shooting, but it's not so dark that you can't kind of fudge it a little bit if it starts to get to nighttime and you have a steady hand. 400 is my preferred ISO, ASA, whatever you want to call it. And it's also got your exposure compensation dial right here. 2 stops either way. And yeah, adjusting the ASA, I keep wanting to say ISO. Adjusting the ASA is done simply by lifting up and then turning, and then you drop it down to set it. And yeah, you can tell I don't really use any other film speed because it's just all dusty and gross over the 400. Everything else is clean. And this is also where you find your rewind, your film rewind lever. Moving across to the right, we've got standard issue hat shoe, and to the right of that, you've got your. I'll get back to this in just a second when I talk about the viewfinder and get to these 2 buttons in just a second. But it's also this is where you select whatever mode you're going to be shooting in. You've got this L actually means that it's locked. You can't fire the shutter. In my experience, you don't really need to do that unless you're storing it in something that you might accidentally push down on the shutter release. But auto is kind of what this model of camera, the ME and the ME Super, were designed as aperture priority. So you set your aperture and then it selects the shutter speed. And I have never once used that setting. I am a manual shooter, so I'm on M 100% of the time. It does kind of suck that you have to have batteries in order to correctly expose and adjust the shutter speed, but they're super cheap, super common, and they last forever, basically. I think it takes 2 A76 batteries. I may have to end up correcting myself on that, but you've got 2 other modes for shooting. You've got your 125X that you can use without batteries, and that just means that you're shooting at 1/125th of a second. So if you know how to adjust your aperture and everything around that and use your exposure compensation wisely, you can still get a handful of shots. You can still get some good shots. Obviously, you can't dial it in quite as much as you would like, but whatever. That setting is there for you to use if your batteries run out. You've also got the bulb setting, which just means that however long you hold the shutter button down is how long it takes the exposure for. And you got your film winder right there. It's actually, it feels pretty nice. It locks. I just find myself doing this all the time. It just feels good. So yeah, simple enough. It's pretty standard fare. This there's also 2 more little windows right here. You got your film counter, obviously. All of the even frames are labeled. I think let's see. I don't have any film in here. This would be the worst roll of film ever shot if that was the case. Yeah, so I think 20 and 36 are orange. It's got all the even frames labeled, and then of course your odd frames are going to be the dots. Then it's kind of hard to see, but it's got a film readiness indicator. It's kind of dusty, and I forget that it's there. But yeah, you can kind of, I don't know if you'll be able to see this in the video, but if you have a fresh frame ready to be exposed, that little dot is going to be orange. That lets you know, obviously you also can't wind it anymore. But that just, if you, say you ready your film to shoot, and then the moment passes and then you walk somewhere else and you kind of forget about it, and you're like, oh wait, am I ready to shoot or do I need to wind it again? That, just a little glance down, it's orange, you are ready to go, and yeah, there you go. And it is black if it is not ready. Now let's get to where this camera really starts to shine, in my opinion, and that's in the viewfinder. Now, this camera doesn't have 100% frame coverage, viewfinder coverage. What that means is that the viewfinder inside doesn't show you everything that's going to be exposed on your frame, and that's one of the reasons I'm looking into getting a Nikon, actually, like a Nikon F2 or something, just because they do have 100% viewfinder coverage. So yeah, no, you don't have to, and I didn't realize that for a long time, and I would be developing my shots and I'm like, well, I don't remember that being in the viewfinder in the frame when I shot it. Why is it on the film? That's because the viewfinder in the vast majority of cameras don't show 100% of the frame. So, but yeah, it's something once you do realize you can kind of start compensating for, and that way you're not doing a bunch of cropping and everything in post, and that way you actually get exactly what you want in the frame and nothing else. But yes, I think this has like a 92 or 90, I think it's a 92% coverage. So you still get, you have a good idea of just about everything that's going to be exposed on your frame. So yeah, let's see. Now in the middle, the focusing, actually these dots on everything on the left is kind of just distracting me right now, so I'm going to talk about that. You'll notice all these little LEDs in there and some numbers. That shows your shutter speed that you're on, and you see that little thing that says under, and it's flashing red. That is because it's underexposed, probably because I'm indoors and shooting an f/16. But so let's put that down to a more reasonable, we'll say 5.6. Yeah, I don't know, let's go for a 2.8. You've got all your different shutter speeds listed on the left, and that's where these two buttons come into play. These actually just adjust your shutter speed up and down. Up, down, makes sense. So, and I find that extremely useful. You're not clunking around with a dial or anything to, do your shutter speed. And I like that it has it in the viewfinder so that you don't forget what you have it on, and it's super easy to make adjustments on the fly. You're already focusing right here, and you can just pop back to adjust your aperture if you want to stick with that shutter speed, and yeah. And the light sensor does react to both the shutter speed and the f-stop, the aperture ring. So, it'll say, oh, it's underexposed because I'm at f8 and shooting at a 30th of a second. So, if I want to keep that 30th of a second, go all the way to, okay, right there. But at f4, that is going to be exposed properly. Then, of course, if you get lower than that, it starts to say that you're overexposed. Oh, well, I really want to keep that, nice bokeh effect going on, so I'm going to keep it at f2 and just increase my shutter speed to, right now it's saying 125 would be pretty solid. So, yeah. So that thing is pretty handy in here. And you do see that third LED on the left that says M. That's because I am on manual. If I switch that to auto or any of the other modes, it's not going to have that third LED there. But I always shoot in manual mode. So let's see. Yeah, also in the viewfinder here, you've got your focusing ring, or your little central ground glass thing. It's a pretty nifty little mechanic that lets you know if you're in focus or not. Because in the middle, you'll see kind of like, I guess it's two different circles in the middle. Yeah, you got your outer circle, you got your inner circle that is split in half. And, you pointed at something that you want to focus, and if you notice that it's not lining up, you just move it until it is lined up. It's amazing. And then you're in focus. That's pretty much the rundown of this camera. Trying to think of what else I could say about it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so sturdy. It feels good in the hands. The ergonomics are, there's nothing like exceptional about it, I guess, but there's no like harsh edges or anything that feel uncomfortable or like poke into my hand or anything. It's all like it's definitely angular, but it's kind of rounded angles, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I've just had an absolute blast shooting with this camera. This has given me, for $25, 3 years give or take of consistent solid use, and this thing still just works like a champ. Can't really say enough good things about it or recommend it enough if you are interested in picking up a good budget film camera, film SLR. I can't believe it. I forgot to show you what the inside looks like. Pretty standard stuff. One feature you got your little, where you put your film, you got your film curtain and everything there. You got your sprockets, you got your take-up spool, your pressure plate back here. Like I said, pretty straightforward. But one thing I do like with this is how it's how the take-up spool works. It's not like you can pretty much, it doesn't matter where it's rotated. It's just ready to take your film in. I can't remember the name of the design of this particular take-up spool, but yeah, no matter where it is, you can put your film in it. So, and in fact, I'm actually going to do that right now. So you get your film in here, you lock it in, you pull it over, and you just get it in any one of these slots, and then it kind of does this weird little backwards spin thing. And you do that give it a couple rolls or a couple winds, and it's ready to go, man. It's super simple, much less complicated than much less persnickety, I guess I'll say. Loading a camera is not complicated at all, but some cameras can be a little bit more difficult. It's been so long, I can't remember if I mentioned anything about the having a self-timer right here. So that's there in case I need it. Let's see. Cool. Yeah. This camera is just, it's fantastic. It's solid. It's wonderful. It's been with me across the country a few times. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's just so nice. It feels good in the hands. It's got a good, it's just sturdy. It's, the amount of different lenses that you can get for it make it super versatile, just because Pentax made a ton of lenses for a ton of different models that all use the same mounting system. If you find one of these, do yourself a favor, pick it up. Yeah, no, this little system for doing the shutter speed is, it just makes it so much quicker, man. It's yeah, it's a good camera. It's I think I've just about covered it. I'll run you guys out with some of my favorite pictures that I've taken with it. It's all just, will I do that? I don't know. I haven't edited this yet. So maybe you'll get some pictures of mine, maybe you won't. I'm hoping to keep a pace of about one video a week. It might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit less, just depending on the week and the various, the different projects that I'll be working on this video, whether it's a camera review or home development tutorials or experiments. Feel free to keep up with me on not just here, but also on my Instagram. I post a few times a week, usually just, pictures from my walkabouts around town. Not that I'm doing that much anymore. Got to keep socially distanced. I'll probably follow you back if you're not a turd. If you are a turd, maybe you should get flushed. Maybe that's my sign off. Get flushed. Kind of like me. I get flushed easily. But yeah, no, keep up with me on Instagram, and I'm also on Twitter at Luke is a fine name. You can find me there. And yeah, let's just keep an open dialogue going. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you think about this video, about topics for future videos, comments, questions, concerns, I suppose. Let's keep an open dialogue. Like talking to film people or non-film people about film. If you got questions about film photography and all that stuff, I'll be happy to help you to the best of my ability. Otherwise, yeah, let's just keep in touch. Let's get a conversation going. Cool. I think yeah, that about does it. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.